with a couple because they came to me to Adams Financial Concepts back in December of 2010. Over the next 2 years, they continued to contribute to their account, and they made a total contribution of $84,946. That's what they had. That's what their account started with by 2012. It was their own money. That's what went in. And they had taken it from a couple of other accounts that most people save. By the end of 2021, those accounts had grown to 420,000, from 84,000 to 420,000. And then, of course, the drop in the market. Like most accounts, greater returns come with greater volatility, and those accounts dropped. But they were on their way up when this couple left. Those accounts had recovered to 378,433. Now pause on that a second. Just pause and think about that. 84,946 in contributions, 378,000 in value. 84,000 to 378,000. It's not a typo. That's just 13 years of compounding, doing what compounding does. And the thing is, this couple had stayed with us for years. Things were good. The relationship was good. They never had complaints about the relationship. Then, last fall, they left. And here's why they left. And this is the part I think about. Every single person listening to this needs to hear, because I bet money it happened to you in some form, even if it wasn't about investing. They'd read some of my newsletters, and I talked about turning a few $100,000 into multiple millions over time. That's a traditional thing. Most of my clients are there. And reading that, they felt small. They felt like their account, which, remember, had grown to nearly $400,000, wasn't big enough to get my attention anymore. And that was reinforced by the people they talked to. And you're going to hear more about that. So they started asking around, and they heard from other advisors, and other advisor clients had hit new account highs by the summer of 2025. Meanwhile, their own account, this one, showing 420,000 at the top, had dropped, was climbing back up, and they left at 378,000. It wasn't sitting at a new high at that time. Now here's where I need you to really lean in, because I'm about to give you two numbers. Two numbers. That's the gap between the whole point of this episode. This is the cost of a feeling. A feeling. And I really wish them well. I want to be really clear about something. This isn't about those other advisors being bad. I generally don't know what their new accounts are doing. Maybe they're doing fine. This isn't about that. This is about why they left. They didn't leave because of a bad return. They didn't leave because something went wrong. They left because of a feeling that they were too small to matter, a feeling based on something they overheard, that the grass might be greener somewhere else. And that feeling cost them conservatively $200,000 in just 6 months. Just $200,000 between the end of September and the end of March. $600,000. And I really wish them well. I mean that. This story's been sitting with me for months because of something it revealed, and that something has a name. And her name is Susan. I want to tell you about Susan, but first I have to back up to 1993. Susan's parents, clients of mine, longtime clients. And in 1993, Susan finished school, and she came to me with the only money she had in the world at that point, $2,000. And I want you to sit with that number for a second, especially right after the number we just talked about. 84,000 in contributions, 378,000 in value, and a $200,000 gap between 6 months later. $2,000. That's it. That was Susan's entire account. And here's what I did with that. Exactly the same thing I do with every account I manage, including the ones with 8 figures in them. I'm not going to tell you what happened to Susan's 2000 yet. I want to come back to it because to understand why it matters, you need to understand something about how the financial industry actually works, how they measure and report performance. And I promise almost no one has ever explained to you in plain English what it does. Once you hear it, you won't be able to think about your account in the same way. You won't be able to look at your statement from your advisor in the same way. So hold the thought. $2,000, 1993. We're coming back to it. But first, let's talk about GIPS. Okay? GIPS. GIPS stands for Global Investment Performance Standards. It's the industry's benchmark for how advisors report their returns. If you've ever seen an advisor's marketing material with big, impressive performance numbers on it, there's a very, very good chance that number was calculated using GIPS. And most people assume that it means it's neutral, it's standardized, it's fair. Honestly, that's what I assumed too when it was first adopted and put into practice. But here's how it actually works, and I'm going to keep this as simply as I possibly can because the math is simple. It's just that nobody walks you through it. For individual accounts, your account, my account, GIPS uses something called a time-weighted return. Seems to make sense, but there are some issues for individual accounts. That discussion has to wait for another time, and I will get back to it at another time. But this time, I want to talk about where it gets interesting. When an advisory firm wants to report its overall performance, the big numbers they put up on their newsletter, on their website, in their pitch to new clients, that's called a composite. And for the composite, GIPS uses a dollar-weighted calculation, not time-weighted, dollar-weighted. Doesn't seem to make a big difference for most people, but that distinction matters. And stay with me because this is the part. A dollar-weighted composite blends together every single account the firm manages, but it doesn't weigh them equally. In practice, the numbers with most money in them have an outsized influence on that final number. Let me give you an example, and I want you to actually picture this happening to real people's money. Say a firm manages 2 accounts, just 2 accounts. One account has $1 million in it, and this year it earned 10%. Good. Nice return of 10%. Great year, even. The other account has 100,000 in it, and this year it lost 50%. Same year. The $1 million account gained 10%. This account lost 50%. Somebody's nest egg got cut in half, the small account. Under GIPS, that firm's composite, the number they put in their marketing, comes out at a 9.8% gain. Says their accounts were up 9.8%. Well, one of the actual clients lost half of everything. And I want to say that again, slower. Because the first time I really understood this, I had to read it 3 times. I had to discuss it several times. One client made 10%. Another client lost 50%. But the headline number, the number that goes in the brochure, is a gain of almost 10%. The big account drowns out the small one. It's not an accident of bad math. It's structural. It's built in, and it quietly, systematically rewards advisors for focusing their best work on their biggest clients, because those are the accounts that move the number that gets advertised. I actually raised this with the GIPS Standard Committee. I asked them about it, and their answer was, and I think this is true, that advisors are fiduciaries and they should treat every client the same regardless of account size. And I agree with that 100%. That's exactly what should happen. But my point is this, the math doesn't enforce that. The standard everyone uses doesn't actually require or even reflect equal treatment. It structurally advantages whoever has the biggest accounts. And an advisor who follows GIPS to the letter still has a reporting system that quietly treats a $2,000 account very differently from a $10 million account. So here's what we do at Adams Financial Concepts. Instead of using a dollar-weighted return for composites, we use a time-weighted return to give a more accurate picture. Here's how we would calculate that composite. The $1 million account that gained 10% and the $2,000 account that lost 50, the $100,000 account that lost 50%. Under our method, the composite would show a net loss of 45%. The two accounts count equally the same. One account counted plus 10, the other minus 50. The average between those two accounts is a 45% loss, not a 9% gain. Same two accounts, same two outcomes, completely different headline, because we're not letting big accounts hide what happens to small accounts. No hiding, no smoothing. Every client counts the same in the math. It's not just a mission statement. And now let's go back to Susan. Remember Susan, 1993, $2,000, the entirety of what she had in the world. And I told you I treated that account exactly the same as the largest accounts I manage. Not because it's charity, not because her parents were clients, and her clients were not that large to begin with. Because it was a principle, the same principle that has nothing to do with GIPS or composites or any of the math we just walked through. It's just that every account gets the same care, period. What happened? Over the years, Susan needed money for life things, the way we all do. She withdrew $29,292 over time, including the money for a down payment on a condo. Today, more than 30 years after she handed me $2,000, her account stands at $118,744. Let that sit for a second. She put in $2,000. She took out $29,292 along the way, almost 15 times what she originally invested, just in withdrawals alone. And her account today is worth $118,744. Add it up. The original 2000 has generated $146,036 in net gains over the life of the account. All of that from beginning with 2000. And here is what you need to write down. Better yet, say it out loud to yourself. Can I say with certainty that my advisor's performance reporting treats my account the same as the biggest clients? That's it. That's the whole question. Most people have never asked them. Most people have never even thought about it. They look at their statement, they see a number, they assume the number means roughly the same thing it would mean for anyone else's account. But now you know it doesn't have to. Now you know there's a version of performance reporting that's built structurally, mathematically, to feature the biggest accounts and quietly smooth over what happens to everyone else. If you can answer that question confidently, if you genuinely know, not just hope, that your account is treated the same in your advisor's reporting as their largest clients, that's great. Genuinely. That's a good sign about who you're working with. But if you can't answer it, if you're sitting there right now thinking, I actually have no idea, it's not a failure on your part. Almost nobody knows this. I didn't fully understand until I went and asked the standards committee myself. But it's worth a conversation with your current advisor, with a new one, with anyone. Just have the conversation and ask the question. because this is what it really means. The industry standard, the $1 million account up 10, the $100,000 account down 50%. Industry standard will tell you it's a 9.8% gain. At Adams Financial Concepts, when we give everyone the same weighting, every single account, 45% loss. We treat every account equally. We focus on that. And that's the takeaway. Can I say with certainty that my advisor's performance reporting treats my account the same as their biggest? So that's the question to ask. If you can't answer it confidently, or you've never been asked, it's worth a conversation with us or anyone else. So here's a quick recap. I know we covered a lot. Couple walked away roughly 200,000 because of a feeling that they were too small to matter. And if someone explained gifts to them and they thought their account was small and didn't matter that much, they moved their account. Susan turned 2,000 into 146,000 in gains over 30 years because she was treated the same as everyone else from day one. And in between, we walked through the actual mechanics today of how performance reporting in this industry lets big accounts mask what happens to small accounts. Perfectly legally, completely standard, and almost never explained to anyone how it affects you. And here's what I'd like you to do with all of that. Whether you're working with another advisor right now, or whether you're managing money yourself, if you have $500,000, let's have a conversation. Let's just talk for 20 minutes. No pitch, no conversation. Just show me your account and I'll tell you if it's like that couple's account, if it really is showing this kind of return. We can walk through it. If you've got a really solid return, you should stay with what you're doing. But if you can't say your account is like this one, then we should be talking. And if you made it all the way to the end of this episode, thanks for sticking with it. I told you at the start it'd be worth the full 20 minutes, and I hope it was. Take care of yourselves and take care of your money, every dollar of it, no matter how small your account looks on paper. And with that, let me ask if there are any questions, any comments. This is what we do for our clients. The biggest and the smallest. Everyone gets treated the same.
Hey, Mike, and hello, everyone. It's Chris Prouty, and I am back to moderate any questions that might come up. If you do have questions, you can enter them into the webinar chat or into the webinar Q&A. Just be advised, if you do put things in the chat and you send it to everyone, then everyone who's here will see it. So just a little bit of housekeeping in the chat as well. I've included two links. One is to Mike's direct link to Mike's calendar. So if you'd like to book a time to chat with him in a no pressure, no pitch context to talk about your portfolio, you can use that link to book a time directly on his calendar. And then I've also included a link to the YouTube channel, and that's where we keep all of the replays to these workshops. And that is the YouTube channel About Money Radio. You can go there, and soon after the broadcast ends, we edit it and then we upload it so that you can watch this again, continue to absorb the lessons that you learned, as well as check out previous episodes. And we've asked that if you do find value in that content, that you give us a quick subscribe, because that helps our content surface for more people who can use this valuable information. Mike, a question that someone asked is about GIPS, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yes.
And is it a requirement, or do advisors choose to use it?
I think advisors choose to use it. It's a standard in the industry. It was developed because people wanted standard reporting. I chose not to use it. I talked to the standards committee when it was released, because I thought, since it was standard in the industry, that it was something that I would have to do for my clients. I'd go backward to do the reporting. It's, as we discussed, and they said it was a dollar weighted return, that I had to keep asking the question, doesn't that really favor large accounts over small accounts? And they said yes. But but advisors are fiduciaries, and advisors should take care of the small accounts like they do the big accounts. And advisors should, but I'm in this business now 40 years, and I can tell you the big accounts get more focused than small accounts.
Mm.
And I'm almost sure that the couple that left were told that reporting, the reporting they were seeing at Adams Financial Concepts was GIPS, because are pretty standard. We meet all the requirements of the SEC advertising rule, and we have met those requirements from the very beginning. But they never asked the question. They moved their account because they had a feeling that they were small and that the $1 million accounts were getting a lot more attention. And most of those $1 million accounts started out like this couple did. This couple was only with me for a little 13 years. You know, the $93,000 account that grew to 6 million
Mm.
was with me for almost 30 years. Susan's account, 33 years. And so compounding is effective, but this couple lost and gave away 200,000. And I hope that they moved somewhere and got that. I don't believe they did.
Mike, somebody's asking what they should look for in their statements to understand how performance is being calculated.
So you should look at your account and look at the different um, allocations. But here's where it gets really interesting, is because in an individual account, it's a time-weighted calculation. So whatever is the biggest portion of the account is equally weighted with whatever the smallest part of the account. And the way most asset allocations work is on the safety pyramid. Oops. Sorry. Which means the biggest portion of the account is the smallest return. But by doing a time-weighted return in an individual account, the return is overstated. So for example, if 40% are invested in the really safe things, safe that are CDs, that are annuities, some of the bonds that are paying 3 or 4%, and 10% is in the stock portion of the portfolio that's earning 10%. Those are equally weighted. So the 4% is averaged with the 10% as if they were the same amount, and you end up with 7% reported out. The reality is it's closer to 4.5%. So that's why we use a dollar weighted return for our individual accounts, so that if somebody's got 2% in their account from bonds or CDs and 10% in stocks, the weighting is going to actually show that. And we don't use asset allocation. We're focused on growing our accounts, but we use a dollar weighted return for individual accounts, time weighted for composite.
Hmm.
That's the opposite of what GIPS does. I think it's inaccurate.
Mike, someone's asking, what is it like to meet with you on that first call? What are the things that you do?
On the first call, we usually sit and look at an existing portfolio. I explain what I do. And they come away with information on where things are headed. I talk about the future. And we believe we're entering in a stage of stagflation. We're seeing interest rates beginning to rise, and we're seeing a recession beginning to happen. Over 50% of people are cutting back on what they spend. That's typically a recession situation. So we're seeing stagflation begin to take place, and stagflation is like the pain of 1,000 paper cuts.
Mm.
It's slow, it's methodical, and it just, you know, picture 1,000 paper cuts. So that's what happens on those calls.
Mike, that's all the questions we have in the chat. I do have a question for you, and that is, what do you have on tap for us for next week?
So for next week, I want to return to the, oops, it's terrible. Pension Bee did a survey that showed that just 12% of Americans have enough retirement funds to last just 10 years.
Mm.
Those are the best prepared people for retirement. Just 12% of Americans funds to last 10 years. A very high risk, 88% of people have a high risk to outlive their money. Pension Bee is more realistic. Pension Bee is looking at stagflation and what's going on that aspect. Most firms are estimating that 47% of people run the risk of outliving their money. I think Pension Bee's numbers are much more accurate. They're saying just 12%, 88% of people have the potential and risk of running out of money. We're going to talk about that next week. Why that's true and what can be done.
I'm looking forward to that one. And Mike, there are no further questions in the chat. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to be with us today, whether you're here on the live broadcast or in the recording. It means the world to us. Please make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Mike, as always, you get the final word.
Have a very good week. And thanks for being with us. Thanks for sticking through the webinar. And I will be back next week to talk about what Pension Bee found and why it's so important. Take care.